Hey y'all, it's Dr. Lala. Welcome back to another episode of the Revolve Podcast. This is the place for where believers meet at the intersection of grief, loss, and transition to explore how faith and therapy help along the way. Because listen, grief and loss are a journey. They are not a final destination. And so today, let's talk about the woman who's always had to be strong. This for the woman who has spent her entire life being strong. She learned how to carry things by herself, how to hold everyone together. She's the one who makes it happen, the one who makes a way out of no way, right? The one who learned to survive. Let's talk about her. Because this woman is strong. And oftentimes, there seems to be no weakness in her. And most of the time, that's because she doesn't think she has the space to show weakness. She doesn't think she has a space where she can be vulnerable. Strength is all she knows. So in this episode, let's talk about what it looks like to learn your emotions and to give voice to them. Let's talk about reclaiming the parts of you that you lost while you've been in survival mode. Yeah, this episode, let's talk about learning to feel again. And that can be a scary place to be. It can be, especially when being strong is all you've ever known. I can remember one time I had someone say to me, "You're always so hard." "You're so strong." And my response was, "I'm not that way because I want to be. I'm that way because I have to be." And that's a truth that I've found to be true for most women that I've talked to. Most people I've had this conversation with, they told me they were strong because they had to be, not because they wanted to be. They were hard because being soft meant putting themselves in harm's way, right? That hardness was an armor. It was a shield they had put around themselves to protect themselves. So let's talk about what that looks like. Let's talk about what it looks like to be the strong woman, the strong one. Because the thing is, you weren't born that way. Have you ever thought about that? You weren't born strong. You weren't born with this armor on. You became strong. And more than likely, you became strong out of necessity. As a little person, it probably wasn't safe to be soft. You probably weren't given space for your emotions, right? It may have been that you had to be the leaning post for your family. And because you were helping everyone else stay upright, maybe you didn't have time to find someone to help you stand upright. Maybe you needed someone to lean on and you didn't have anyone, right? Strength became the default because there were no other options. Either you were going to do it or it didn't get done. But strength in this instance is a survival strategy. But it doesn't have to become your identity. It doesn't have to stay that way. You know, and we're talking about becoming strong in childhood because of things that happen. But sometimes picking up that armor happens in adulthood. Maybe you have been in relationship with someone who abused your trust, who's taken your love for granted, who's taken advantage of you. And so you became hard to protect yourself because you were afraid, right? And sometimes on that journey, we lose the ability to give language to our emotions. And even if we have the language for them, it may be that the space you're in isn't safe to be able to give voice to them. Right? And being in this space where you can't do that doesn't mean that you're broken. You've done what you had to do to survive. Right? But this woman who's living in survival mode, she can't go with you where you're going. She can't go with you into the next phase of your life. Because holding in your emotions isn't healthy. When we're angry, when we're sad, when we hold in these feelings, just like we've talked in numerous episodes, we've talked about how whatever's going on the inside will eventually show up on the outside. Whether it comes through weight gain, weight loss, headaches, hypertension, syncopal episodes, Bell's palsy. If we don't address our emotional and mental, eventually there will be physical signs and symptoms of that. So yes, she's helped you to survive. And we appreciate her for the work that she's done. But she's got to learn to give voice to her emotions. She's got to learn to speak up for herself. She's got to learn that it's okay not to be okay, right? Because somewhere along the way, she learned that sharing her emotions, her feelings, put her in danger, right? If you showed emotions, if you cried, then that meant that you were losing control. Again, being vulnerable meant that you were exposing yourself to potential harm for someone to be able to take advantage of you, right? If you asked for help, sometimes you were made to feel like you were being needy or you were needing too much, right? And sometimes when you did try to express the pain that you were having, when you did try to tell the person who was hurting you that what they were doing was causing harm, they said you were being dramatic. And because of that, you shut down. You found ways to stay busy so you wouldn't have to face those emotions. You decided if you were more productive, that you wouldn't have to face those emotions. That you could use that energy somewhere else. Somewhere along the way, you decided that if you stayed in motion, you wouldn't have to sit with yourself. And let's just sit with that for just a second. Somewhere along the way, you decided that if you stayed in motion, you wouldn't have to sit with yourself. But the thing is, you're not going anywhere. So you can keep moving, but eventually you'll have to sit down. You'll have to sit with yourself at some point because you can only run on autopilot for so long. Eventually, you're going to run out of gas and you'll have to sit with yourself. So, building emotional awareness, building emotional intelligence is not a sign of weakness. Sitting down with yourself and calling a thing is not a sign of weakness. Actually, it's wisdom, right? It's wise to be able to put a name to how you feel. It's wise to be able to understand where those feelings came from. It's wise to learn how to regulate those emotions. It's wise to learn to not to suppress your emotions. It's wise to learn how to express yourself without exploding. It's wise to learn how to honor your feelings, to acknowledge your feelings, and not be consumed by them. It's wisdom to be able to do that. It sure is. Because then no one else has control. Once you learn to manage your emotions, once you learn to give voice to your emotions, no one else can take that control from you. That control stays in your hands, right? And here's the thing. When you've suppressed your emotions for so long, when you've been numb for so long, that first engagement with real emotions can be scary. It can. Giving language to your feelings is really and truly like learning to speak another language. Because now you've not only got to acknowledge them, you've got to figure out what they are. And then be able to give voice to that. And so it's going to be awkward. It's definitely going to be uncomfortable, right? It's unfamiliar. And honestly, you'll probably get some pushback because folks are accustomed to you just going with the flow. Folks are accustomed to you not responding, right? But here's the thing. Becoming emotionally aware and becoming emotionally intelligent requires that you be present. Because up until now, you probably zone out. You've been zoning out. When something happens that brings up an emotion, especially if it's a negative emotion, you just zone out. Right? You don't have to be engaged. But learning emotional intelligence, right? Becoming emotionally aware will require that you slow down and actually start to pay attention. It'll require that you listen to your body, that you begin to acknowledge when you have needs. Because up until now, you said it's fine, whatever. And you just went with the flow. So your needs weren't being met. But now, those needs, they need to be met. It means being honest with yourself and being honest with the people you're in community with when something hurts, when there's a need. It means being honest. And then it means letting yourself be human. You're not needy. You're not dramatic. You're not too much. You're human. And being human can be scary, especially when up until now you've decided that I don't have any emotions. I'm not going to let anything bother me. And you've held it in this entire time. Right? But listen, becoming emotionally aware means that you get free. It means that you're no longer held hostage by feelings of overfunctioning, numbness, being burned out, resentment. You're no longer held hostage to doing everything by yourself. Have you ever given thought to that? How resentful you can become because you're holding your feelings in? Becoming a hostage? Because you're not willing to allow yourself the space to be human? Because that's what it feels like when you have all of these emotions swirling around and they have no way out. We can become trapped within ourselves, right? Becoming emotionally and intelligent and becoming emotionally intelligent is a bridge. It's a bridge between the woman that you had to be and the woman that you're becoming. Because the woman that you're becoming, she has the ability to voice her emotions. She has the ability to tell people how she feels. She has the ability to express herself without exploding. She has that ability. She has the ability to be aware when she's angry, when she's sad, when she's happy. She's aware of her emotions. And she's not ashamed for feeling the way she feels because she knows she's human. And it won't always be like this, right? And so as we learn how to manage our emotions, how to give language to those emotions, our faith can play a pivotal role in that because our faith gives us permission to feel, right? Nowhere in scripture does it say that you're not allowed to feel your feelings, right? Psalms 34:18 says that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. God is with us every step of the way. He welcomes our emotions, right? Our faith is a safe space. This is the place where we can bring heaviness. This is the place where we can bring heartbreak. This is the place where we can bring those things that we can't carry ourselves. God is not intimidated by your feelings, your anxiety, your fear, your grief, your confusion. None of those things intimidate him. He actually says for us to bring them to him. He says that we can come to him. Our weariness, we can take it to him, right? God does not ask us to be strong, but he does need honesty. He needs us to be honest with him and to be honest with ourselves. How many of us have had things happen and we said, it's okay, it doesn't bother me, but deep down we're heartbroken? How many of us have been guilty with that? Right? But we can trust him. I promise you, whatever you're trying to carry on your own, the Father can carry it. He's fully capable and willing. He loves you. And he wants you to live a life that is happy. A life where you're able to be fully and authentically yourself in every phase. Fully emotionally intelligent, emotionally aware. With faith, our emotional awareness can actually deepen. Right? Because we're able to spend time with the Father and contemplate those things with him. Because we don't have to carry it by ourselves. And along with faith, we have therapy. Because therapy helps us to build emotional muscles, right? It's where we learn how to identify and understand triggers, to identify those unhealthy patterns that get us to that place, right? It helps you to learn how to heal and feel without falling apart. It helps us to do those things. It helps us to give name to our emotions. It helps us to practice vulnerability in a safe space. You can go to therapy and say, that made me mad. Right? It's where we learn how to use emotions as information and not threats. Our emotions tell us stuff. We can get data from those, right? It's where we learn that we can be strong and soft. Both versions of you are able to coexist. You don't have to choose between being capable and being human. You don't have to choose between those. Therapy is where we can learn how to stop living in survival mode, right? So that we're no longer surviving, but we're thriving. Because that's what it's about. It's about learning how to thrive. And it is possible to do that. With everything you've been through, you deserve to be able to thrive. You deserve emotional safety. You deserve emotional presence. And you deserve emotional intelligence and awareness for yourself and for those you're in community with. You deserve those things. And I'm proud of you for having the courage to build up your emotional intelligence and your emotional awareness. I'm proud of you for sitting with yourself. I'm proud of you for starting your journey. Keep going. And so until next time, keep choosing healing, keep choosing joy. I love y'all. Bye.